So you have this prompt, y equals 2x plus 4, and it says name a point, sorry, not an oint, a point that is on the line. My students do this in several different ways. The first way is they have learned slope-intercept form, which this is in. If you don't remember slope-intercept form, it's y equals mx plus b, and the first number is the slope, and the second number is the y-intercept. That slope is usually described as a fraction, change in y divided by change in x. Sometimes that fraction simplifies to a whole number, sometimes it doesn't. So in this case, the fraction simplified to a whole number and it's 2x plus 4. So if you know y equals mx plus b, you know how to graph this equation in just a couple steps. So I'm going to draw a graph. And this is y equals 2x plus 4. So the y-intercept is 4. I'm going to graph that first. And 4 is where it crosses the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. Then 2 is our slope. Well, we want to make that be change in y over change in x. Another way to say that is rise over run. So I want this to be a fraction. I can change it to a fraction by just putting it over 1. And then the rise over run, or the change in y over change in x, means it's going to go 2 up and 1 to the right. So 2 up, 1 to the right. You can also go the other way. To simplify this to a positive 2, a negative divided by a negative works. So you could go 2 down, which is the negative direction, and then 1 to the left. So here's our line. And there we go. And then to name a point on the line, just pick one that's already on the line where you know where it is. I'd prefer one of the ones you've actually drawn, right? Because it's hard to find the other ones. So this one is -1, 2, and then you're done. You named a point that's on the line. Another way to do this is to make a table, which is the first way that we made a graph. So I provided you with an XY table. It looks like this, where you just have x and y, and then you could just choose some values that you like to do math with for your x. I'm going to pick 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then your y equals 2x plus 4 is like a little formula for how to calculate what x is. So I'm going to put my little y equals 2x plus 4. So I'm going to replace the x with a 0, and then that will tell me what y is at that point. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is 4. So on this one, it's 0, 4. Then you could find that out for each one. We do 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 4 is 6. And then you could pick any of these points. So like 1, 6 is a great point. Here is a much easier way. Your equation always gives you a point that's on the line, the y-intercept, 0, 4. So if you're asked this on a different quiz and it doesn't say you can't use the y-intercept, just use the y-intercept. Put in 0 for your x-coordinate and 4 for your y-coordinate. But how can I get any point? Because there are actually like a lot of different answers to this question. There's not just 1 or 2 answers. If you look on my line, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, and it could be any of these. 1, how high up is that? 6. This is 0, 4. This is -1, 2. This is -2, 0. And this is -3, -2. You could plug in any number for x and get out a y in this scenario. So what if I told you a point and you have to check to see if that point is on the line? It isn't always practical to make a table or to make a graph, because then, like, what if I give you 100 as your point and you have to count out 100 squares? That's ridiculous. So here's a very simple way. Every single point that can be found on that line, even the ones that are in between, every single point on that line is an XY pair that makes this equation true. And they are the only ones that make this equation true. So if you have an X number and a Y number that make the equation true, then they're on the line. That's a point on the line. So let's try an example. We have y equals 2x plus 4. That was a T. It should be a plus sign. Okay, and I want to see if the point 8, 20 is a point on this line. So I know that 8 is my x value and 20 is my y value. So I'm going to put those in, put my 8 in for my x and my 20 in for my y. Now, I don't know if it's easier for me to keep this here or for me to erase it, but you're just plugging them in. You're getting rid of your x and y because now we know what they are. They're 8 and 20, or at least we hope they are. We're going to put 20 in for y and replace 8 for x. Now, anytime you substitute a value, it does help if it's around things, put some parentheses around it. That way it will come out right in your calculator and preserve those operations. So you could plug in your calculator, 2 times 8 plus 4. Does it equal 20? Well, 2 times 8 is 16 plus 4. Yes, that equals 20. So 20 equals 20. This equation is true. So 8, 20 is a point on the line. Now, I find that a little bit easier than graphing and then having to graph out 8 far and see if it goes up to 20. And especially with big numbers or with fractions, it's going to be easier to plug them into the equation and just check rather than to put them on the graph and see and kind of guess in some cases.